Well, welcome to our program for the Washington County Free Library in Western Maryland. We are coming from our home, our living room in Silver Spring, Maryland. A little farther away, but thanks to technology, we get to be with you today. We're so glad you're with us. I'm Karen Ashbrook. I'm playing hammered dulcimer, a little bit of penny whistle there. And this is my husband, Paul Orts. And he will tell you a little bit about the next tune and his instrument.
All right. You'll probably recognize this as an accordion. This is the Belgian variety. It doesn't have a keyboard on this side, but it has buttons, which puts everything a little closer together. This was the most common instrument when I was a kid growing up in Belgium. And every Saturday night, there was a ball in the parish hall of the church of the town where I grew up. And accordion was king. If you had a small ball, you had one accordion player. If you had more people, there would also be a trap set player. And even if they had even more money, they would also bring a saxophone player. And that was a full trio. And the style of music they played was called musette music. I heard that so much when I was a little kid. We'd like to play one of the standards of that repertoire. It's called bourrasque, which means a sudden gush of wind, or also an argument between a young couple.
And I just want to point out that Paul's accordion has buttons on both sides.
Yep, a button accordion, a button box, la boîte à punaises. We'd like to do another Belgian tune or a set of tunes at this moment. The first is called the Marsch van de Begijnen. The Begijnen, if those of you who have traveled in the Low Countries may have visited some beguinages, Begijnhoven. Since the Middle Ages, there was something, a special institution in the Low Countries, Flanders, Netherlands, Northern France. Women, unmarried women, went to live together in certain areas of town where no men would be allowed after sundown. They had this semi-monastic life. It was a way of protecting each other and being safe. It was also often a way for rich families to find a solution for their daughters. They didn't want them to marry, so they didn't have to give them a dowry. So they bought them a small house in the beguinage where they would be safe. And they were very religiously active. They went to church a lot. And when there was a procession, they would march in the procession. So that's the Marsch van de Begijnen. Then we'll do a minuet from the 1700s in Antwerp. The minuet in 3/4 is a predecessor to the waltz. Waltz became popular in the days of Napoleon, and it was scandalous because people danced close together. In the traditional dances, you held your distance. So a minuet. And the last tune is a popular dance tunes that kids dance to in Belgium. It's called the bear dance.
I like to think of it as the Flemish version of the hokey pokey, because the kids dance around and they're hunting the bear with various body parts, like their wrists or their heads or other body parts, and it goes faster and faster. So the bear dance, Marsch van de Begijnen. Well, now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of the instrument I'm playing, the dulcimer, or the hammered dulcimer as it came to be known in this country. It goes back, we're not sure how far it goes back, at least to the Middle Ages, and it seems to have developed in Europe and possibly also in ancient Persia around the same time. So modern day Iran, which used to be Persia, has had an unbroken tradition for 800, 1,000 years of this instrument. The santur is the Persian name for it. And eventually this instrument traveled all along the Silk Road, so all the countries in Asia along the Silk Road have a version of this instrument. And in fact, it's even factory made in both China and Taiwan to this day, but the Chinese name for it, yangqin, means foreign zither, or zither from the west. But we're going to focus on Europe, where it definitely developed, and by the Renaissance it was everywhere, all over Europe. I'm going to start with this comic book version of musical history on the dulcimer with a little bit of improv on a Hijaz scale to get the flavor of some of the oldest versions of how the dulcimer was played. And then we're going to go to a top 10 hit, Greensleeves, moving into the Baroque era with a little bit of Bach. And then we're going to take it into the folk realm because it was definitely a street instrument. And it came to the U.S., more in the north, into the lumber camps, but we're going to take a tune that music traveled. It wasn't just people who traveled. So we're going to play the tune Red Haired Boy that started in Scotland, went to Ireland, came to the U.S., all up and down the East Coast and even into Canada with a little marchy feel to it. And then we're going to go solidly down to the South, and in more recent decades, probably in the last 40 years, this instrument's found quite a bit in the South too, as a dance instrument. And it's been a dance instrument in this country from the beginning. So we'll end with a little hoedown tune. So this is your 3-minute overview of 8 centuries of hammer dulcimer music.
guess I should
Time for Paul to switch instruments again.
do something serious.
So we're going to, this is the classical part of our program coming up, as in the great classics. Paul was a classics major, and in fact, he's also a professor of Italian and French at Loyola University. But we are going to Greece now, and this might be a story that you probably read in high school or in college. And it has a chorus. We'll hope you sing along. Paul will tell you a little more about it.
This is a study in comparative literature. See how
Paul's major.
stories changed over time.
And get retold.
One inspired by the great classic epics, the oldest of our Western Greco-Jewish civilization. Although it got processed in a very interesting way. We have a friend in Oregon named Nick Doherty, who plays out with a band called the Oregon Trail.
Oregon Trail Band.
They were recording a number of years ago, and everything that could possibly go wrong during the recording did go wrong. Hailstorms, computer drives crashing, electricity going out. So they spent a pretty wasted day in the studio, and they went out for a beer afterwards at the bar across the street from the studio. And Marv Ross, the guitar player of the band, said, "Hey, I started writing lyrics to the tune that we were recording today." And then by committee, they seem to have added up a little bit to this, and they came up with what they call the Greek song, and what we learned from our buddy Nick Doherty. It's called the Greek song. The music is called the Eastern Star. And it was the same composer who wrote...
who wrote Never on Sunday, Manos Hadjidakis.
Right. Here's a Greek song about a dude they call Ulysses. He was strong, and his homeboys weren't no sissies.
Nope.
He was lost on a trip they call the Odyssey. It was very long, I guess there was a lot to see. Ulysses sailed the ocean after he whooped the Trojans, and then he sailed the course for home.
What did he have, Paul?
He had a wife named Penny,
But
she wasn't getting any letters from Yulee while he rolled.
that was not good.
He met a temptress named Circe. She made his homeboys beg for mercy. He heard the sirens sing their love call. He poked a cyclops in the eyeball. Ulysses sailed the ocean after he whooped the Trojans, and then he sailed the course for home.
What did he have?
He had a wife named Penny.
Yep.
She was not getting any letters from Yulee while he
Where
rolled.
was he?
got a poem they call the Odyssey. It's very long, and in college it was hard to read.
Yeah.
It had long names, short swords, and long boats. It was so long that I just read the cliff notes. Ulysses sailed the ocean after he whooped the Trojans, and then sailed the course for home.
Last chance.
He had a wife named Penny. She wasn't getting any letters from Yulee while he rode.
All right.
For the cultural part of the program.
Cultural part. Well, now I think it's time for Paul to talk a little bit about his instrument that he played at the very beginning of the program. He's actually got two of them in this show. This is the older one he's about to play. It's called a harp guitar.
It's called a harp guitar because it is like a regular guitar, but it has extra strings that go much lower. So it adds to the bass. They were very popular in the early 1900s, and by the 20s they started disappearing, because at that time it seems that a lot of people started using upright basses in small ensembles. That's when jazz started, and these things were no longer really functional. But they were invented in the late 1890s, which was the time of Art Nouveau, as they call it in Belgium and in France. It's the time when they added superfluous curls to everything, and they were very often inspired by the sinuous lines of flowers and plants. So this is a very sinuous instrument, as you can see. This particular one was built in 1916 in St. Paul, Minnesota, by the Dyer Company. The Dyer brothers did not really make them, but that's another long story. I love playing harp music on this instrument. It gives you the range that you need. There are harps in the house here. There's the little one. Karen's son
used to play. Now he's a jazz harp musician on trombone.
Okay, maybe he'll find the way back home someday. But here's a piece by Thurlock O'Carolan, the Irish composer. It's called Miss Murphy, and we will follow that by a contemporary tune written by our friend pianist Dave Weisler, who composes lots of tunes for English country dancing, and he calls it Miles of Smiles. Apparently his mother grew up on a farm in Iowa, and the name of the farm was Mile of Smiles, and that's what he wanted to commemorate. Miss Murphy. miles.
Well, now we're going to go back to the continent and go to Italy. And again, sort of something out of the Baroque era. Paul is an avid mandolin player, and this is a mandolin duet. And since I'm not a mandolin player, it became a mandolin hammer dulcimer duet.
Our source for this is, as is very common these days, the internet. I was browsing around at the site of Mutopia, which is a site where classical music that's out of copyright is made available for free. And I found this mandolin duet by a composer that I'd never heard of before. His name is Carlo Cecere. He lived in the 1700s in Naples, and very little is known about him. He composed flute music, and he composed violin music, and also a little bit of mandolin. And his piece, the piece that I found, is so ridiculously Baroque. It has all the stereotypical phrases in it that we started making a pastiche of it. And here's Carlo Cecere's Sinfonia. Ridiculous. Do we have something sublime to follow that with?
So in a completely different sphere, in my professional life, I also work as a therapeutic musician, and that has become my great passion. I work at Georgetown MedStar Hospital and also at Walter Reed Military Center. In the pandemic, I have not been in the hospital at all, although I do play for patients via Zoom at Georgetown now. We have these little tablets that's sort of musician on a pole that goes around and plays in patients' rooms. But I was trained through the Music for Healing and Transitions program. I became certified in 2013, and I have never looked back. I love playing for people in this capacity. It's not entertainment. It helps ease pain, anxiety, stabilize. And let's just say things have been rather tense in the world for the last several years, so I find music an extremely powerful and useful medicine for all of us, myself included.
Non-chemical.
Non-pharmaceutical. That's very important these days. So I actually have a couple of recordings that are just solo dulcimer meditative music. This is from one of them. It's a beautiful Irish lullaby from Northern Ireland, from Donegal, from a little town called Garton. It was collected from a woman, so it's called the Garton Mother's Lullaby. Well, that brings us to our last piece today. We're so grateful to be able to do this program for the Washington County Free Library in Western Maryland. If it wasn't for the pandemic, we might not be there, actually, and you might not be with us. So there are some silver linings in being able to reach everybody. I'm Karen Ashbrook. This is my husband, Paul Orts. We have recordings of some of the music we've played together today. And we have a mailing list, of course, and while everything's still virtual, pretty much everything we do is accessible from your home on your computer or tablet or phone. So visit our website and sign up if you'd like to hear more of what we do. And now we're going to wake you up so we don't send you off to sleep, so it's safe for you to drive home as if you were driving home. Yep.
We're going to make it an Italian wedding tarantella. The accordion was the synthesizer of its day. It has secret weapons. I have buttons here that allow me to pull off all stops on the accordion. That's what we're going to try to do at the end of this while we're playing La Più Bella Tarantella. Yeah.